Hi, this is Dawn. We're meeting with Alex, Journey Foreman, and he's here to share his experience. Hi, Alex.
Hi, how are you?
Good. So, if you could take us back to the beginning when you became a lineman. Do you want to tell us about that and how you actually got into the career?
I started off, I was going to college. I thought I was going to wear a suit and tie for a living. So that was kind of where my focus was. I met my wife, had a baby, and then in 2000, well, didn't have a baby yet, but in 2008, the housing crash happened, and it was like all the money for college dried up. And it was like, well, now I got to go find a job. Her dad was actually a lineman for the local utility. I saw what he was doing, and I was like, I like that lifestyle. He provides for his family. He can be home. He can do all these things. I was like, I want to be that. He's like, cool. I'll help you be a tree trimmer. I was like, but I want to be a lineman. He's like, no, I'll help you be a tree trimmer. You prove you can make it there, then I'll help you be a lineman. I went out and I started off as a tree trimmer, line clearance tree trimmer, which they don't get nearly enough credit as what they should. It is probably one of the hardest jobs I've ever had to do. To be proficient at it, you don't have to be good, but to be good at it, you have to be very smart. You have to know your angles, you have to know your knots. There's just so much information about trees, different types, how they work, all that stuff. It really gave me an appreciation for kind of the blue collar savant where they like there's so much you can learn. There's so much that you can do when you become a professional, but they don't get paid as much as linemen. That's kind of what drove me towards the lineman. In the IBW, the lineman is at the top. Everybody wants to try to climb to the top. That's kind of what you're geared to do. I went out and I applied for about 2 years to get into the apprenticeship, and my father-in-law did help me, with that kind of knowing what to say type of thing. Have a strong back. I'm willing to travel. Learn your knots. Learn all the stuff you can to try to give yourself as good of an interview process as possible. And I was one of two apprentices that was accepted the year that I was accepted. I think it was in 2000, late 2009 when I got in. And then from then on, I leaned in hard to try to be the absolute best at line work I could. I was never going to be the strongest. I was never going to be the biggest. I started off in the trade. I think I was 120 pounds. I was like 6'2", so I was very tiny. I'm trying to keep up with these 40-year-old men that have been doing this profession for 25, 30 years. I mean, they were huge guys. I had to like figure out all the rigging I could to try to, help myself get to that point. But yeah, that's kind of how I landed into the trades was kind of a crooked path to get there, but it has given me everything that I've ever wanted. I have four children, a house. I've built my way out of that kind of lower middle class to kind of lower upper class, I guess it'd be. Just been doggedly pursuing all those goals, and line work has allowed me to do all those things. I've traveled all over the country. I've done helicopter work. I've been on some of the most beautiful places I've ever seen, and they're literally closed to the public. The only reason to ever go there is to build infrastructure, and I just happen to be part of the crew that got to go there. So I've been extremely blessed in a lot of the projects I've gotten to work on.
That sounds really interesting. So, how long were you an apprentice for before you
So
moved up?
my apprenticeship went fairly quickly. I was working a whole bunch of hours at the time. I got through my apprenticeship in just under 3.5 years. Now they've put limits in place, so the apprenticeship should take between 4 and 5 years, which is better because I feel like I got through a little bit too quickly. And so for probably the first 2 or 3 years after I topped out, I would tell everybody I was an 8-step apprentice, which is not a thing. You get 7 steps and then you top out. I'd tell everybody I was an 8-step apprentice, basically just telling them I'm brand new. I am a journeyman, but I'm a new journeyman. Like, keep teaching me. And I've tried to chase that education my entire career and keep that mindset of be teachable. And that's really helped me to be successful.
And now, do you have a crew that works under you?
Now I'm the general foreman of this job, so I have 3 crews working under me at the moment. We had 4, but we finished up the project, the harder part of the project, and that crew, they went on storm. So we're down to 3. In the line work profession, I'm a journeyman, a general foreman now. And the next project, I might just be a journeyman lineman, which is totally fine with me. I much prefer swinging hammers to pushing pencils.
What's like a little bit of a description of what your day looks like? If you were describing your job to someone, how would you describe, obviously not every day, but like a little description?
The nice thing about this job is every single day is going to be a little bit different. As the general foreman, typically what I do is I make the plan for the day and kind of lay out the tasks that I want to see done. And I will hand those to the foreman in the morning. The foreman will then go to their crews and they'll plan their day and how they're going to do everything. If they run into any obstacles, any problems, if they need any tooling, anything breaks, they'll call me. My job is to go get that barrier out of their way. It's really like a servant type leadership role. My only job really is to remove obstacles for them. So there's a pretty good saying in the trade. General foreman decides what needs to be done. The foreman decides when they're going to do it. The journeyman decides how they're going to do it. The apprentice is usually the one that has to do it. So that's kind of the way it trickles downhill. So that's kind of how we do it. But if you're a journeyman on the job, you show up and you kind of have an idea of what's going to happen for the day. And then when you get out to the job, you can kind of decide this is how I want to do this. And as long as it's safe, as long as it's efficient, you're you're good to go.
What are some of your ups and some of your downs?
Some of the ups are the job is exciting. You get to do these really cool projects. And if you've ever had that mentality of I just like doing projects with my buddies, building cars or building stuff on the weekends, having a couple beers and hanging out, you pretty much get to do that every day, but you don't always get to pick the buddies you have to build with, and that's the part that kind of ebbs and flows. But if you get with a good group of guys, it is probably one of the most fulfilling jobs you can do because you're tackling a task that almost nobody else in the world can do. Very select few know how to do it, and you're one of them. And you get to be with your best friends. You're out there. You might be flying around on a helicopter. You might be doing something that the boss said, nobody can do this. This will never get done. And now all of a sudden, you and a bunch of guys you met a couple weeks ago, you're doing it. And so that'll give you that really really big high. And then there's also those lows where eventually, no matter how exciting the job is, eventually it becomes just a job. So you might be flying around on helicopters every single day. Eventually, the excitement starts to dull, and it's just, I'm just out here doing my job. I'm just doing what I get paid to do. And so that part kind of is the downside, I guess. But what's really nice about the line industry is when you start to feel that kind of creep in, you can go do something else. So right now I'm on a transmission project. After this project wraps up in about a month, I'll probably go storm for a couple months because that that sounds like a more exciting thing to do for a little bit and give myself a break from doing this transmission stuff. I'll go back doing distro and doing storm repairs and things like that, which is another thing that I like to do. So you get to change tasks in a big way without changing your career.
The different jobs, you can choose them.
The contractor, you get to choose what you want to do. I can quit my job at any time. All my benefits and all the things that make a career, they travel with me to my next task or my next job. I can just switch to another company. Last year, I worked for 12 different companies over the year. I had a buddy who we have a friendly competition. He worked for 20 companies last year. So we can just change jobs really quickly. It used to blow my parents' mind because they're like, oh, I can't believe you. Why would you quit such a lucrative job? Why would you do that? And then once they figured out like it's because I'm going to another lucrative job, then they started to figure out kind of what dragging up and being able to change and stuff like that, and how much freedom you really have as a lineman.
That does seem pretty cool though, like instead of all the same.
I don't know how people can do the same thing for years and years and years on end. I think I'd go insane.
Yeah, I think that does happen. All right, so then you also mentioned like that you bridge the gap between the digital age.
So back in like 2008 when I got in, the average age of linemen were like in their late 40s. That really hasn't changed a whole bunch. The average age is now I think closer to the 50s. So that huge wealth of knowledge is starting to retire. We haven't replaced them fast enough. There's not really a lot of people in my age bracket and in their late 50s that have almost 2 decades of experience in the trade, there's not a lot of those people around. So I know, and I was trained by the people who did basically everything analog. Everything was on paper, everything was pencil. The way you earned knowledge, you didn't go look it up on YouTube or anything like that. You learned it from somebody else. They had to physically take you in the air and show you this is how this works. Nowadays, the newer age people, they'll look it up on TikTok, they'll look it up on YouTube's. There's people call each other. I'll make little videos of what we're doing up in the air to be like, hey, this is how we're clipping this structure. It's working really well for us. And I'll send that video to the rest of the crew so that everybody can share in that knowledge. That's not something that the older generation is really comfortable with.
You were saying that the older generation basically just didn't have the
Yeah, they
technology.
didn't have cell phones. They didn't have a way to take a video so they could like have one crew who knew what they were doing clip and show and then send that to them. They also didn't process and learn that way, which is totally fine. They learned through grit and they earned it the old school way, which is super commendable, but not as applicable now. So we kind of need that like bridge where I can absorb the knowledge from them and package it in a way that the younger generation can consume quickly, because training has become the most important thing we do out here, but it's also not very easily capturable. It's very hard for a company to justify training somebody who's going to be leaving soon. And we have a transient workforce in the IBEW. Basically, all of these contractors are sharing all of the same employees. So none of them want to train, but all of them have to train. And that's where you get this like chicken or the egg scenario where it's the most valuable thing we can do, but I really want somebody else to do that valuable thing. So that's where the mentality of like, you take a video, I can share it to somebody, they can share it to somebody, and we can really get that knowledge out there as quickly as possible.
Now with the JNCTN,
For a junction,
so how
yeah.
did that come about?
So that came about when I first got into the trade and I was going from job to job to job. I realized all of these jobs need the same data. They need the same information from me. Why do I have to keep repeating it over and over and over again? I should do it one time. It should be stored somewhere and it should just be a shareable file. And so first I was laughed out of the room and I was told that was ridiculous. Nobody would ever put all their information in one spot like that, which didn't make any sense to me because I was literally doing it on every single new hire packet I was doing. Then they were scanning it and emailing it. They were doing the exact same thing I was describing, except I wanted data security around it because I went to college for technology and data security. That was what I was interested in. I started developing a system that would do just that. It would store all this information, make it easier for me to get a job, easier for me to be hireable, and then it would make it easier for me to track all of my qualifications and certifications rather than carrying a wallet this thick everywhere I went. While trying to figure out a way to make a system like that, obviously I knew I couldn't do it by myself, so I was going to have to go find somebody to partner with. That's when I reached out to Junction, JNCTN, in New Zealand, and they were doing this exact thing that I was talking about over there. And I was like, perfect. We just need to repackage it and bring it here. The more I started looking into it and the more problems I started collecting, the more I realized it was desperately needed for our industry because there's nothing like it. So not just for our industry, but I haven't seen anything like it for any industry. So my goal was to just ring a bell loud enough to get enough attention that somebody would take this idea and go with it. Because all I wanted to do was stop filling out paperwork. But I knew my problem wasn't important enough to fix. I had to find what was the problems that those people cared about. How do I fix those? So I looked at safety. With the case studies in New Zealand, we figured out it absolutely makes people safer because it measures competency, not just certifications. And then it streamlines a bunch of things and makes stuff more efficient. It makes it easier to recruit people because it gives them a clear step-by-step process. Do this, do this, do this. Now you're qualified for the program. So I started just looking at all these different things it could do, and it's like, it's a complete no-brainer to me, but I still am trying to unlock who can actually green light it and give me the yes so that I can stop filling out paperwork, because that's really what I was trying to kill the whole time.
Is it a program that you would use as an individual, or is it a program that companies would adopt
So
into their company?
So it's both. There's three key players. There's the individual who holds all of the certifications. It would hold all of my personal information from my bank account to my tax records. Everything would be on there for me to use how I saw fit. The company would use it because it's verifiable, which means that all of the data in it is correct. So me as an individual, I can easily give that company my data, which they need in order for me to go to work for them. Third one would be the issuers. So like if you're a trainer or a trainer provider, you can issue me those credentials. If somebody's claiming that you issued them those credentials, you can verify whether or not that's actually true or not. So it protects your program so that nobody can fake their way and pretend like they have your credentials. So it would be used by unions to validate union tickets, validate certifications. It would be used by utilities to validate who you are, how to pay you, that you were actually there, all of those things. The individual themselves, they would get data security and a place that they could update one person. Say you change your address. I can update my own personal HR file and it will notify everybody who needs to know that my address changed without bothering anybody who doesn't need to know that my address changed.
Interesting. So you would just send that file to HR of the new company.
They would just automatically do it. So when you showed up, you can just scan a QR code and everybody in HR that needs to know gets it. Everybody who doesn't need to know doesn't get to see your data at all. Stuff like your social security number, it shouldn't be floating around in an email just being sent to all these different people. There's a very select few people in the company that actually need to see your social security number. And even they don't actually need to see it. They just need to validate that it's correct. And if it's already been validated by a trusted third party, then nobody at that company needs to know your social security number. They just need a green check mark. Then if an audit comes along, say the government comes and says, we need these files, then Junction would verify that that is actually the government asking for those. Then they would release those files. That completely eliminates the cybersecurity risk for the company. In today's day and age, data is becoming more and more valuable, more so than the labor we're actually doing. So that's where this program is going to start generating a lot of its value. But I'm at a chicken or the egg scenario. It's the most valuable thing ever as soon as people do it. I got to get people to do it before it's valuable.
So you work with them to bring on companies?
Yep, so I'm working with them because their main goal in New Zealand was to try to build something for the worker themselves. They didn't want to just build another corporate tool that that would be utilized as much good as it could do. It has the potential to do a lot of harm if somebody else owns this data on your behalf, and that's what they wanted to avoid. So their philosophy was we have to build something that people would actually want and people would actually use. The companies will of course use it because they need all that data anyway. If we have all the people, the companies will obviously show up afterwards. So that's kind of what the philosophy behind building it. I've been their loudest advocate over here on stateside, so I've been working with them closely and loudly as much as I can.
How do you go about getting the program out there?
So what I do is I basically have been collecting problems for the last 15 years. So I look at storm rosters, just the pain points of all this data and all the paperwork that comes with hiring somebody, and how can I alleviate that for not just the company, but also the workforce. A lot of it is just tracking. I'm supposed to track my hours, track my healthcare hours, make sure my company's depositing to the right places. And this is a program that would do all of that for me on almost an automatic basis. So that's been my way of getting the word out, has been mostly just talking to my coworkers. I travel all over the country on all these different storm events, all these different jobs, and I'm constantly, how can this help you? What are the problems you run into? I've just been solving those for real people. I'm not very good at politics or office politics. I'm very much in the field at the bars, hanging out with the boys type of deal, and trying to solve the issues that they have. That's basically how I've been getting it out.
How often do you travel?
You don't have to travel a lot for work. There are jobs that are very local, like at a utility, or if you live close to a city. My family and me, we did not want to live next to a big city, so we kind of live out in the country. There's not a lot of jobs out there. So I wound up traveling for work. I travel probably, I'd say 5 to 80% of the year. I'm away from home. It's kind of a short-term loss, long-term gain. I've paid off all of our student loan debt. I've paid off most of our house. I purchased a farm. That's actually why I'm on the road right now, is I'm trying to pay off the farm. All of my children have college funds. They all have house funds. We've really, like, as hard as it is to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, if you want to travel in the trades, you absolutely can. It's hard, but you can do it.
That sounds amazing. And then you have a farm that you go home to?
Yep. I got a 15-acre farm that I go home to. My dog gets to come to work with me, so that's kind of nice. That's one major perk of transmission is usually you're out away from people a little bit, so you can do stuff like bring your dog to work, have grill outs with your buddies, stuff like that, which is nice. So that's one of the reasons why in the summertime I always gravitate back towards transmission usually. And then in the wintertime, I usually go back to Stormin and doing distro because you can stay a little warmer. I'm always trying to find the next exciting job. And that's usually where you'll find me.
I think most people would like to do something like that. So if you had to give any advice to upcoming high school students,
In high school and you're coming straight out to the trades, don't get sucked into the lifestyle. What I mean by that is don't go buy a brand new truck. Don't go buy a brand new house right away. Work a year or two and get your feet about you. Then really get a financial planner and plan your finances. The sooner you start doing that, the sooner you will get yourself to freedom. It doesn't matter what trade you're in. It doesn't matter how many hours you want to work. If you don't have good financial literacy, you won't make it. So that is the best piece of advice, is to increase your financial literacy. The nice thing is about today's day and age, you don't have to pick between blue collar and tech. You could be a blue collar person and also pursue tech in the background. That's basically what I've done.
You seem happy. Doesn't seem like you have any regret.
No, not at all. I mean, I think I've worked a little too much. I should have been home a little more. But other than that,
anything else that you'd like to add?
Like I said, just you can always, one thing, people go to college and fail out and go blue collar. You could also go blue collar and then go to college. There are plenty of programs that allow that to happen, and it is a much stronger financial plan than to go straight to college. If you could go get a trade and then decide, I don't really like this trade, you never lose the fact that you have that trade. You always have a fallback plan. If you go to college and you decide, I don't like this college or I don't like this degree that I got, it's worthless. You can't just pick it up and go back to it. So I think it'd be a much smarter financial decision, even if you wanted to go to college and you knew for sure college was what you wanted. Go do a trade. Get your journeyman ticket for that trade and then go to college. There's plenty of life. There's plenty of time for that. And I don't think anybody would.
So if you had a theme song, what would it be when you walk into work every day?
Theme song? Man, I don't know. I've never had a question about a theme song. I don't know. I'm drawing a blank now. Oh, The Boys Are Back in Town. I do that one.
That's a good one.
It's always fun whenever.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say it's always fun whenever you go to a big job, because the guys who go to big exciting jobs, they're always the same guys. So after about 5 to 10 years in the trade, no matter what job I go to, anywhere in the country, I know somebody. Somebody there knows me, or I know somebody. So every time I go there, I'm always a little bit nervous, a little bit, oh man, am I gonna fit in? Is this gonna be okay? And I get there, and then it's like, there's Rob. I know him. We're gonna be fine. I'm on his crew. Awesome. Let's do this. And off you go. Or I went to a 500 job. I didn't know anybody there. The pilot shows up and he's like, hey, I remember you. And I was like, all right, I know that guy. Cool. And instantly everybody was okay with me. And it was like, boom, we're back again. And about a week later, one of my buddies showed up, and it was Ryan. Oh, I know Ryan. Me and Ryan are buddies. He's on my crew. Let's go. So it was like, it's always fun once you start getting that dynamic going. It really makes it easy for me to just go to any job in the country and know somebody there is going to be like family.
One person. That is nice. A lot of the crews travel all over too.
So they always wind up on the same, because we're all the same kind of adrenaline junkies. So it's like, I heard about this cool job over here. Without talking to each other, we all just wind up on the job together, and then it's like getting the boys back together. So then the boys are back in town, and you get to go hang out on helicopters and fly around on towers together. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, so that's a good song. That's a good theme song.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, I don't have any more questions, but I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today.
Yeah, of course.
Always here if you ever have anything else you want to add.
All right. Yeah, thanks.
Thank, thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
All right, have a good one.
You too.
Bye.